What do you do when science stops making sense, the stars start blinking, and aliens call your entire species bugs? The three-body problem shows what happens when one human decision changes the entire fate of Earth. It's part mystery and part sci-fi nightmare. Scientists vanish, the laws of physics collapse, and humanity's brightest minds can't stop what's coming. It's cosmic horror, wrapped in science, betrayal, and the kind of existential dread that'll make you want to unplug your telescope. Based on the trilogy of Remembrance of Earth's Past by Cixin Liu, this series still has 2 upcoming seasons. So, before they drop, let's recall what we've seen in Season 1. At Tsinghua University in Beijing in 1966, a massive crowd chants to sweep away all monsters and demons. Physics professor Ye Wenjie is dragged onto a stage, accused of being a counter-revolutionary. His student-turned-interrogator demands he renounce his teachings. At the same stage, Ye Wenjie's wife denounces him while he calmly speaks of scientific theories as reasonable explanations. Meanwhile, their daughter, Ye Wenjie, watches helplessly from the crowd. Seeing Ye Wenjie refusing, his captors beat him to death as Wenjie looks on. When everyone leaves, Wenjie places a pipe on her father's chest before being called away by the soldier who struck the final blow. In 2024 London, Detective Clarence Shaw investigates the strange death of a theoretical physicist who left behind a message written on the walls. It was a series of numbers forming a countdown. Clarence notes there's no sign of mental illness, but the state of the body is disturbing. At Oxford, physicist Saul Durand refuses to leave the particle accelerator even after it's shut down. When his boss and mentor, Vera Ye, sees him still there, they talk about how the results show that science is broken. Vera asks if he believes in God, and Saul says no. Moments later, Vera walks into a Cherenkov tank and jumps. Elsewhere, scientists Auggie and Jin are drinking at a bar. Jin studies global particle accelerator data, while Auggie is researching nanofibers and has even started a nanofiber manufacturing company. They discuss the data results of every particle accelerator and how they don't make sense. As Jin steps away to take Saul's call, Auggie sees glowing numbers appear before her eyes. It's a countdown. Soon, Jin returns with grim news that their mentor, Vera Ye, is gone. Elsewhere, Clarence updates his board with Vera's name. Her former students are listed below. They're Saul, Jin, Auggie, Will, and Jack. Of the 5, only Jack dropped out but became a millionaire through his snack company. At Vera's funeral, the group reunites. Jack teases Will about seeing Jin again, though she's reportedly dating someone new. Auggie arrives late, still seeing the countdown. Jin asks how Augie's checkup went regarding the glowing numbers, but Auggie says the doctor doesn't know what it is. Watching from outside, Clarence spots billionaire Mike Evans among the mourners and later follows him to a helicopter. That night, the friends gather at a bar. Auggie steps outside and meets a mysterious woman who somehow knows about her countdown. The woman tells her it will stop if Auggie ends her nanofiber research. Knowing she doesn't believe her, the mysterious woman asks Auggie if the stars ever blinked at her and instructs her to look at the sky at midnight the following day. Before leaving, she warns Auggie to never let the countdown hit 0. Back in 1967, Ye Wenjie was sent to a labor camp in Inner Mongolia. There, a man befriends her. He gives her the banned book Silent Spring, making them grow close. But one day, the book is discovered in her possession. Despite the consequences, Wenjie refuses to expose him and is imprisoned. After some time, someone offers her freedom in exchange for signing false statements, but Wenjie refuses this. Later, she's assigned to a military base called Red Coast, where she's told she'll never leave. They immediately show her one of the experiments that involves sending a signal to various locations. Time passes when Wenjie determines Red Coast isn't a weapons project, but a communications one, intending to send signals into space. In the present, Jin visits Wenjie. It turns out that Wenjie is the mother of their dead mentor, Vera Ye. While Jin looks through Vera's things, she finds a metallic helmet. Wenjie says it is a video game, and Vera was playing it before she died. Curious, Jin asks to take it, and Wenjie lets her. After getting home, Jin tries on the metallic helmet, and a voice states, Level 1. She finds herself in a space akin to reality, except it's a virtual desert world where the sun rises and a sandstorm uncovers a body. In panic, she rips off the helmet. Elsewhere, Clarence is aware of the helmet's existence and says that they must get their hands on one. He emphasizes that anything happening to scientists is relevant. That night, Auggie and Saul head to Oxford to look up at the sky. Right when the Tom Tower bell rings at midnight, the stars light up and start blinking. Saul observes that it is in sequence and deciphers that they are numbers forming a countdown across the heavens. When Auggie hears this, she realizes it is the same number as the countdown she's seeing. The following morning, Wenjie watches a news report about the strange blinking stars confusing scientists around the world. Saul visits her with takeout, paying quiet respects to the memory of Vera. When Wenjie asks if he has a theory about the stars, Saul jokes that it's all an elaborate deepfake because even though every everyone saw it, none of the world's telescopes or satellites recorded it. Just outside the Nanotechnology Research Center, Jin comforts Auggie, telling her that whatever she decides will be the right choice. Once inside, Auggie supervises a live test of her nanofiber lattice. The synthetic diamond she's using splits perfectly, earning applause from her team, but the glowing countdown still ticks before her eyes. Haunted by the mysterious woman's warning, Auggie abruptly shuts the entire project down and leaves. Before the countdown reaches less than a minute, it vanishes. Outside, Clarence finds her, casually suggests she keep moving, and introduces himself. Then he asks if she doesn't want to know why the stars flickered just for her. In 1968, Redco Space broadcast greetings into deep space, hoping for contact with alien civilizations. Ye Wenjie questions the effort, invoking the Fermi paradox. It raises the question of where everyone is if intelligent life is so probable. With such thoughts, she believes their signal is too weak. Wenjie then tells her colleague to contact an American scientist despite the danger. Later, they receive a reply. The data from it helps Wenjie theorize that the sun amplified the signal received from Jupiter. So, instead of directly sending a signal to Jupiter, they can use the sun to bounce signals off it to boost transmissions across the galaxy. When Wenjie's colleague presents this theory to their superior, he calls it politically dangerous. But Wenjie is determined, so she secretly changes the transmitter position and sends a signal towards the sun. Back in the present, Clarence shows Auggie the security footage of the alley where she met the mysterious woman. The video shows Auggie completely alone, yet her cigarette lights itself, proving someone invisible edited the footage too perfectly to trace. Clarence believes Auggie met someone and hints she's more important than she realizes, and her nanofiber may have made her a target. Meanwhile, Jin puts on Vera's mysterious helmet again. Inside the simulation, she's reborn as Copernicus, meeting the Count of the West and a young girl named Follower in a desert world trapped between chaotic and stable eras. He explains that the goal is to solve the riddles of that world and determine if an era is chaotic or stable. As the sun rises and the shade shrinks, Follower dehydrates to the point that she becomes thin as cloth, while the Count calmly explains that those who dry fast enough can survive to be rehydrated in the next stable era. Later, Jin shows the helmet to Jack Rooney, who tests it himself and finds the virtual world disturbingly real. He's quickly attacked by a sword-wielding woman who tells him he wasn't invited. Even after multiple tries, he can still feel and taste the pain of getting slashed. Unknown to them, Clarence is already listening in on their conversation. After some time, Jack receives his own metallic helmet with a note saying he's been invited. Unlike Jin's old China setting, his is more like old England. Elsewhere, Will Downing, one of Vera's students, lectures about the many worlds theory and how consciousness might continue across infinite timelines. After class, he sees his doctor, who informs him of his cancer. Soon after, he meets Jack and confides that he has late-stage pancreatic cancer and only months to live. Meanwhile, Jin re-enters the simulation and tries to save that world from a catastrophe. Her scientific reasoning impresses the Emperor, but the Count of the West delivers his answer and instructs Copernicus to place her hand on the ground to speed up time. They soon reach the stable era, and they start waking up people by hydrating them. Copernicus does the same with Follower's body. Soon, everyone is rehydrated. However, the stable era ends instantly, freezing everyone, including Follower, into brittle statues. The swordswoman reappears, praising Jin for proving the superiority of science over mysticism, and invites her to try again on level 2. Unbeknownst to Jin, her gameplay is being monitored across multiple screens. Elsewhere, Clarence reports to his boss, Thomas Wade, who suspects billionaire Mike Evans, known for funding anti-science movements, might be behind recent events. Back in 1977, a younger Wenjie meets Evans, who's in China protecting endangered birds. They bond over Silent Spring and their shared disillusionment with humanity. Later, Wenjie receives a transmission telling her not to answer. Claiming to be a pacifist, the message says responding means they will come and their world will be conquered. After a long pause, Wenjie replies that they should come because they cannot save themselves. Wenjie even says that she'll help them conquer their world. At CERN in Switzerland, Clarence investigates a scientist's death, one of many in a strange wave of deaths among them. The latest victim is found with his head in a bathtub, echoing the mysterious death of Oppenheimer's mistress. While searching his quarters, Clarence discovers a shiny headset, identical to the ones Jin and Jack have been using. At Jack's place, the group discusses the scientist's deaths. Will asks Auggie if she still sees the countdown, but she says it's gone along with her career. Later, Auggie finds Jack's helmet, puts it on, and is attacked by a strange woman inside the simulation who says she isn't invited. Panicked, Auggie confronts Jack and Jin, accusing the game of hacking their brains. Saul takes a close look and links everything together. The blinking stars, Auggie's visions, and this game, all connected through virtual realities that feel too real. Auggie urges Jin and Jack to stop playing. Jin says they'll stop, but that night, the two continue anyway. She and Jack video call, discussing and planning for the game. Jin recruits Jack's character, Francis Bacon, to to pull off the plan. Inside the game's second level, Copernicus meets Francis Bacon. They also meet Follower, who mentions she remembers all the worlds. But before Copernicus can learn more, they must present their findings to Pope Gregory XIII. There, Jin explains that the planet exists within a three-sun system. Copernicus says that when the planet orbits one sun, it becomes a stable era. But when the other sun's gravity pulls randomly, it leads to a chaotic era. The Pope rejects her theory and orders her and Jack burned. Suddenly, the world collapses under three suns. Everything burns except for Copernicus and Francis Bacon. Soon, the swordswoman appears, announcing the destruction of Civilization 152 and their advancement to level 3 for successfully revealing the structure of the star system. Meanwhile, Wade examines the helmet that was retrieved. After studying it, they determine that it has a brainwave sensor and retinal tracker. Wade suspects it's a recruitment tool targeting brilliant minds. In a hospital, Will recovers from surgery and confides in Jack and Saul. Still weak, emotional, and recovering from the meds, Will claims Jin already senses his current situation, even though he hasn't told her. That night, Auggie reactivates her lab's reaction chamber, and the countdown returns. Seeing it, she quickly closes the nanofiber technology. Frightened, she calls Saul, realizing why scientists might be dying. Before explaining more, she hears another woman's voice with Saul and hangs up. Back to the game, Copernicus and Francis Bacon enter level 3, where they find Follower again. Follower warns they're running out of chances. However, they're unable to give a proper proposal before the Great Khan. So he commands his guards to boil them. Once in the boiling pot, Copernicus submerges herself to touch the ground, advancing time. This time, the three suns align, and soon, everything seems to gravitate toward the suns. Failing again to save Follower, Francis Bacon pulls at Copernicus, trapping themselves in the tower to save themselves. It is then that Copernicus realizes the real goal isn't solving the three-body problem. It's about finding a way for civilizations to survive. The gravitational pull finally stops, and the swordswoman overseeing the game announces that Civilization 184 has perished, but she commends them for uncovering the truth, making them advance to level 4. Meanwhile, Mike Evans monitors the game remotely, identifying Jin and Jack as prime candidates. He orders their recruitment for the upcoming London summit. Later, Evans enters a room to speak to a mysterious extraterrestrial presence, calling them My Lord. He explains that humans fear individually, while the other species fear as one. The being concludes that humanity must relearn fear to survive. Elsewhere, Jin and Jack receive the invitation to go somewhere specific. There, they meet the same woman Auggie encountered, who reveals to them about the Santee, the alien civilization behind the game. Jin stays to learn more, while Jack calls the woman delusional and leaves. With Jack gone, the mysterious woman hands Jin a note card with the coordinates, date, and time to be there. The woman hints she knows Jin's past and invites her to join their cause. That night, Jack returns home to find no signal in his house. Suddenly, the woman appears in his house, confronting him. Clarence watches from outside but doesn't see Jack get attacked. The mysterious woman sneers that Jack should have kept playing. Then she vanishes, leaving him lifeless on the floor. In London, 1982, young Mike Evans and Ye Wenjie meet over dinner. Now released from prison and a professor, she's in town for an astrophysics conference. They've researched each other. Evans knows her past, while Wenjie knows he now runs his father's oil company. Evans explains that to fight power, one must embrace it. Wenjie agrees, but questions how he's using that power. She then hints about something she did during her time at Red Coast Base. In the present, Will waits for Jack to pick him up from the hospital, unaware that Jack is already dead. Saul arrives instead to pick him up. Meanwhile, Jin, Auggie, and Wade review the footage of Jack's death. Jin breaks down and Auggie comforts her. Wade tells Jin that the group behind the deaths wants her to join them, while Auggie was told to stop her work. Jin can choose whether to walk away or help bring those responsible down. Later, Clarence reports to Wade that Mike Evans is on an oil tanker called Judgment Day, and it's currently moving in the Mediterranean. On board, Evans receives a report from his aide that the London summit list is complete, and Jack Rooney didn't work out. Once again, Evans speaks to the Santee through something akin to a radio, and he learns from them that their enemies are watching, but the Santee assure him they'll be protected. Meanwhile, Saul and Will clean Jack's apartment before his parents arrive, finding a box of childhood mementos that Jack cherished more than his wealth. Later, Jin makes up her mind, and Clarence prepares her for the summit. He reminds her she's there to gather information, not start a fight. Aboard Judgment Day, Evans reads Little Red Riding Hood to the Santee, but struggles to explain metaphors. He tries to teach the Santee about it, calling their enemies pests. However, the Santee don't understand deceit, and after a long pause of thinking it through, the Santee conclude that liars can't be trusted. The Santee say they can't coexist with liars and are afraid of humans. With that, the Santee is done communicating with Evans. Terrified, Evans Evans begs them to respond, but the radio falls silent. At the summit, there are a lot of people. Among them is the mysterious woman who cold-bloodedly finished Jack. Then Ye Wenjie appears, revealing herself as the true founder of the Santi movement. She tells the crowd about witnessing humanity's cruelty and destruction, and insists that humans can't save themselves, but the Santi can. Their arrival is 400 years away, and humanity must prepare to welcome them. Suddenly, police storm the building, but Wenjie calms the crowd, claiming this is part of their lord's plan. However, chaos soon erupts when the mysterious woman opens fire. Clarence shoots her to protect Jin. Soon, the situation is controlled, and survivors are detained. However, the mysterious woman is still alive and crawling to safety. Later, Will mourns Jack, finding Jin's old birthday note inside a fairy tale book. He then calls Jin, suggesting a trip for them after Jack's funeral. The conversation shifts when Jin shares what she's learned, a past that began long before they were born. In 1984, Evans shows Wenjie the Judgment Day ship. He tells her the aliens have been trying to reach her, and she's given them hope. Excited, the two share a kiss. In the present, Wenjie faces Wade's interrogation, saying the Santi will arrive, and when they do, even Wade will be so grateful. As a ship horn echoes, Wade talks to Raj about his first command mission. Raj explains the ship he's staring at is an expensive relic built for 20th century wars, burning thousands of liters of fuel every hour. But if given £1 billion meant for naval defense, he won't hesitate to spend it on aerial drones. When Wade asks why he joined the Royal Navy, Raj answers that it is to defend his country. Wade replies that what he needs Raj for is much more important than that. Meanwhile, Clarence questions Ye Wenjie, pressing her on why she trusted the Santi. He reminds her that when advanced civilizations meet primitive ones, it never ends well. He brings up how she received a message in 1977, one that warned her not to reply, but she did anyway. Wenjie calmly says humanity can't solve its own problems, so she sought help elsewhere. Later, Wenjie admits to Clarence that she lied about the VR helmet belonging to Vera. She reveals that Vera's biological father was Mike Evans, though Vera never met him. She recruited Jin because she believed Jin is a great physicist. At Clarence's probing, he learns that faster communication with the aliens is possible. After interrogating Wenjie, Clarence updates Wade, who's already strategizing to seize Mike Evans' ship without damaging its data. Every option, from missiles to gas, risks destroying the target. Aboard the ship, Evans tells his followers to have faith. He insists they still watch over them, but Evans's faith wavers. When he tries to contact the Santai again, there's only silence. Later, Clarence visits Auggie and Jin, bringing food and a plan. He needs Augie's nanofibers for their operation, but he does not specifically explain what for. She agrees, so they quickly head to her research lab. She nervously starts up the reaction chamber. Oddly, the countdown that once haunted her doesn't appear. Clarence guesses the Santi have abandoned their flock. At a beach, Will learns Jack Rooney left him almost £20 million after taxes, but with his cancer spreading, Will refuses treatment, for he just wants peace. In Panama, Wade rallies newly recruited engineers, while Auggie and Clarence watch nearby. They have 6 days to complete the most important job of their lives. With Raj and Auggie leading the project of building long nanofibers, Auggie starts doubting if she's doing the right thing. Soon, they finish the job, and the Judgment Day nears the canal where they've set up the nanofibers. When the ship passes through them, chaos erupts. Invisible threads slice through metal and flesh alike, tearing the vessel apart. Evans tries to escape, clutching a red disc, but in the end, he's cut down. At the command center, Auggie watches in horror as her creation destroys hundreds of lives. Soon, from the rubble, Wade's team recovers a still intact red disc. Weeks later, cryptographers fail to decode it until it opens on its own. Inside is an enormous CXL file called 3-body Sofon, with the memory of more than 100 petabytes, or 100 million gigabytes. Later, Wade confronts Wenjie with the results. He hands her a recording of Evans's last conversation with their lord, leaving her stunned. Elsewhere, Wade picks Jin up from the safe house and brings her to their office to show her the 100 petabyte file. To open the file, they must put on the metallic helmet. Wade is surprised since it's his first time, but as they walk, they find the swordswoman. When asked, the swordswoman admits that they only look human for their benefit since they wouldn't like their real appearance. She honestly says they're doomed since 400 years from now. The Earth will surpass the Santi's technology even before they get there, meaning they're only marching to their funeral. To stop this, they have been disarming the humans, explaining why those with brilliant minds are targeted. To do this, the Santi uses their Sofons. She explains that it is a proton turned into a sentient computer. She discusses the technology behind this, how they created 4 Sofon, making 2 pairs of 2. With each pair entangled, they've sent 2 Sofons to Earth while 2 remain with them. The Sofons can watch and hear everything and directly communicate it to the Santi despite the distance. Using them, they've stopped the study of particle accelerators globally since this is the biggest threat to the Santi. She ends the conversation by showing them what they're capable of, promising they will teach them to fear again. Across Earth, every digital screen flickers, displaying one message for everyone to see: you are bugs. Soon, the skies turn to mirrors, reflecting cities on themselves as a massive eye stares down from above. But unlike everyone's panic, one woman widely smiles. After the eye in the sky, panic erupts across the world. Millions flood the streets as news spreads that the Santee are coming. Governments deploy their militaries to suppress riots, but chaos keeps spreading. Clarence brings Jin to see Wenjie, who hasn't spoken since the Santee called humans bugs. Jin tells her that outside people are terrified, some losing hope, others worshipping the aliens even more. Wenjie finally speaks, recalling a poster from her youth that said, "Destroy the old world, forge the new world." That slogan became her life's mantra. Jin fires back that Wenjie betrayed humanity by dooming future generations. Hearing her, Wenjie admits that the Santee stopped seeing humans as worth saving after realizing how deceitful humans can be. Jin accuses her of playing God, declaring that history will remember Wenjie as a traitor. At Witchwood Manor, Wade turns the estate into their new operations center, ensuring that it is far from riots and cults. He has ordered the particle accelerators to start up again. This time, he tasks Jin with finding a way to send a probe to 1% of light speed using current technology. Elsewhere, Will sits on the beach with Saul, reflecting on death and fear. He doesn't believe in God, but imagines watching over his friends from the sky. Auggie joins them, and her own sadness is apparent. Later, Jin presents her staircase project plan. It requires a chain of nuclear detonations to accelerate a probe step by step through space. It's risky, expensive, and violates treaties, but Wade approves it anyway, saying he wants to accomplish something monumental. Raj later approaches Wade, asking to join his space fleet project instead of returning to the Royal Navy. Wade agrees, revealing plans to build a military base on the moon. Elsewhere, Jin visits Will and her friends. Jin brings wine and a goldfish for Will, who hides his worsening condition behind a smile. While there, Jin tries to recruit Auggie for her project, but Auggie refuses to work for Wade again. She challenges Jin to ask Raj about Panama, reminding her that when the brightest minds last came together, it ended Hiroshima. The next morning, Jin and Will share a moment at the beach before Jin leaves. Back at the house, Saul and Auggie encourage Will to be honest with Jin about his feelings and not to care about Raj. After listening to them, he goes back to Oxford. Soon after, Jin and Raj argue about the massacre. He defends it as necessary to stop the Santee's human collaborators, including the people who killed Jack Rooney. Jin is disturbed by how easily Raj justifies the deaths, but they reconcile anyway, unaware that Will sees them together and quietly walks away. Meanwhile, Clarence presses Wenjie about Vera's suicide. Wenjie admits that Vera found her messages to Evans and realized the truth, which destroyed her. However, with no charges against her, Wenjie is soon released. However, she's still placed under surveillance. At the beach, Will's encouragement makes Auggie agree to help Jin, so Auggie heads to Witchwood Manor, intending only to help her friend. Later, Jin brings up the issue of how the spy probe will be destroyed once detected by the Santee. Wade says it won't be a problem since the Santee will pick it up, for they are sending a human being. Elsewhere, Wenjie returns home and tries to speak to the Santee. She admits she's old, wrong, and that her faith in them doomed humanity, but believes the future will bring a fair fight or no fight at all. At the beach, Will stares at the horizon, thinking of Jin's paper boats drifting in the water. He later visits the Stars Are destination and buys a star. At night, Will shows Saul the star he bought for Jin, called DX3906, more than 400 light years away. Saul jokes that by the time the star's light reaches Earth, the Santee will already be here. Will brushes it off, saying he just wants Jin to look up and know that one bright star is hers. He makes Saul swear never to tell her the truth about the gift. Moments later, Saul hears a thud. Will has collapsed. At Witchwood Manor, Jin video calls Saul and Will, who assures her he's fine, but when Saul moves away to speak to her privately, he softly tells Jin to come soon. After the call, she receives the certificate for the star, wondering who could afford it. Later, Wade introduces Jin to Dr. Demikov, who demonstrates his breakthrough in keeping an ape between life and death using cryoprotectants. The goal is to send a human body aboard the staircase probe to the Santee fleet, but it will take 200 years to arrive. Wade announces he'll enter hibernation himself, waking briefly each year to fix things for 4 centuries. However, when the ape tries to eat, it ends up sick. Wade dismisses this as a side effect. Meanwhile, Auggie meets with Jin to discuss building a sail made of a massive nanofiber weave for the probe. Auggie admits she started her work for good reasons, but now questions whether it'll ever help the right people. Later, Wade says they only have enough bombs to accelerate a payload under 2 kilograms. To make the mission possible, Wade says they would only send a human brain. To do this, they'll need a human volunteer, preferably someone already dying. Wade decides Will fits the profile. Jin and Auggie are both furious, but Wade mentions that it's up to the man himself, adding that only Will truly knows himself. This thought gives him an idea, but Jin is furious and vows to stop it, while Auggie quits, disgusted with Wade's methods. Elsewhere, Clarence spends time with his son, Reg, who shows him a project where people can invest to someday go to space. Clarence humors him, unsure how realistic it is. Reg is even about to meet Dennis Porlock, the same guy from the Nanotechnology Research Center. However, Clarence still thinks it's ridiculous, so Reg walks out on him. Meanwhile, back at the Nanotechnology Research Center, Auggie earns Dennis Porlock's disapproval after she releases all her nanofiber research online. This turns it into open source, making it accessible to everyone, not just the powerful. At the hospital, Will later tells Jin that Auggie came to say goodbye. She tries to convince him not to volunteer, but he knows the project can't happen without him. Finally, he tells Jin he loves her, and she can only cry. Meanwhile, Wenjie looks through Vera's things. Among them is a picture of younger Wenjie and a child who looks like Follower. Later, she meets with Saul in the cemetery where Vera is buried. Wenjie reflects on her guilt for summoning the Santi. She then tells him a strange joke about Einstein and God, with a weirder ending line of "never play with God." Wenjie explains that some jokes are only meant for two people, but it's important nonetheless, for they can't survive without them. After their talk, she leaves him behind, hoping her joke doesn't cause him trouble. Elsewhere, the mysterious woman now lives alone. While watching TV, a voice calls to Tatiana. The swordswoman soon appears on the TV, telling her she's still part of something larger. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Wade says Will fits their project despite not signing a loyalty oath. Soon, Will prepares for the procedure, and Saul sits with him. Both are emotional. Will says he'd rather go on his own terms, thanking his friends for making his life enough. When Jin learns that it was Will who gave her the star, she rushes to see him. However, it's too late. Will is gone, and his brain is already frozen. Elsewhere, Wenjie travels to China with the guy watching her. She heads to her old workplace, the Red Coast base. There, she meets Tatiana. They quietly talk, and Wenjie apologizes, ready to face the end. Tatiana offers to make it painless. But before doing so, Tatiana accompanies Wenjie in, watching the sunset one last time. Back in Oxford, Saul watches the news with a woman from his latest one-night stand. She teases him about his dating habits, asking if he even remembers her name. When he can't answer, she sighs and asks for an Uber. As he walks her outside, a skateboarder collides with him, triggering a chain reaction of crashes. A car then heads toward them and hits Saul's companion, ending her instantly. Clarence later questions Saul, offering condolences but hinting that the crash wasn't random. He reveals that Wenjie met her end in China just days after meeting Saul. Even worse, the autonomous cars in the accident were hacked, and Clarence believes Saul is their real target. Though Saul is obviously confused, Clarence gives him bulletproof clothes for protection. At Witchwood Manor, Jin argues with Wade about adding seeds to the staircase capsule, a symbolic gesture for life. Wade refuses, saying every milligram slows the launch. When she threatens to quit, he calls her bluff. Still, he invites her to join the Cape Canaveral launch team. Out of nowhere, Saul and Clarence are flown to the UN in New York, where Secretary General Lillian Joseph introduces the Wallfacer project. Because the Sophons can see everything, humanity needs plans that exist only in human minds, unreachable by alien surveillance. 3 Wallfacers are chosen, namely General Hu Bolin, a Chinese general, Professor Layla Urish, a Kurdish war hero, and, to Saul's shock, Saul Durand himself. He privately protests immediately, saying he's just a low-level researcher. But when he leaves the building, a sniper opens fire. Good thing the bulletproof clothes saved him. On a private plane, Wade learns about the attack and orders Clarence to ensure it never happens again. On that same flight, Jin ignores Raj's attempts to talk. He pushes until she admits she loves Will and feels guilty that his final days were spent preparing for a doomed mission. Raj argues that Will is gone, but Jin refuses to believe it, clinging to the hope that the Santee could one day restore him. Back in New York, Saul spends a short time in the hospital. Despite Saul's refusal of the Wallfacer position and mission, he still has Clarence in charge of his security and Sebastian Kent as his day-to-day liaison with the Planetary Defense Council. At Saul's request, Kent sets up a meeting between him and Lillian. There, Lillian tells him it doesn't matter if he wants the job, since only the Santee believes he does. She admits she doesn't know why he was chosen, but says maybe he'll find out for himself. In the woods, Tatiana finds a VR headset with a note saying, "If one of us survives, we all survive." She smiles and puts it on. In Mexico, Auggie uses her nanofibers to help improve lives. At Cape Canaveral, the day of launching Will's brain to space arrives. Wade quietly includes Jin's seeds despite their argument about it. The rocket soon launches off Earth and Saul arrives. Later, they successfully accelerate the capsule on the initial detonations, but then a cable snaps, throwing it off course. Will's mind drifts into the void, likely lost forever. That night, the Sofon AI taunts Wade mid-flight, showing him a vision of his own death. On the ground, Saul asks Jin how long the capsule will float. She says thousands, maybe millions of years. Clarence interrupts their grief and forces them to join him for a drive. Soon, they reach a place with numerous cicadas. There, Clarence mentions how people have been trying to get rid of bugs using all sorts of methods. Despite these, bugs are stubborn, resilient, and they continue to live. And that is where the first season of Three Body Problem ends. The Santee are watching, waiting, studying humans like lab rats, while humanity's out there duct taping survival plans together. The Staircase Project might have failed, but now we have the Wallfacers, and somewhere in space, Will's brain is just floating. But it's not totally hopeless. Humanity still has 4 centuries to prepare. So, if this story cooked your brain but you still want more, tap like, hit subscribe, and tell us in the comments what you would do if you were a Wallfacer. See you in the next video.